Hi, this is Neil Thew from Crew Leader Development, and this Crew Short looks at the question, what is an adaptive challenge? Well, let's start with what it's not. An adaptive challenge is not a technical problem. Now, a technical problem is a problem which may be very complicated, such as how to fly a plane from Europe to America, but it's a problem which is already well understood. The nature of the problem is well understood, and the nature of how to go about tackling and solving the problem is already well understood. There's a kind of a playbook which tells us what we need to do. A technical problem is amenable to expertise or to authority. You can find somebody who knows how to think about the problem and who can provide you with a tried and tested solution which can be imposed. So with a technical problem, the problem is well understood, the solution already exists and is well understood, and it's a problem which is amenable to being solved by expertise or by authority. Now, an adaptive challenge is pretty much the precise opposite. An adaptive challenge is the kind of challenge where the problem itself isn't really well understood or clearly defined. The solution certainly isn't clearly well understood or defined, and it's a problem which can't be solved by diktat, by authority or by expertise. It's a problem that needs to be solved by everybody who has a stake in the problem coming together to work on making progress against that problem. Some kinds of examples that you typically find of adaptive challenges would be cultural mergers, whether it's acquisition and takeover and merger between different companies, whether it's internal restructuring so that department structures change or departments get merged, whether it's trying to work in a more interdisciplinary and less siloed fashion. In all of those cases, these are adaptive challenges. One of the hallmarks of an adaptive challenge is that what needs to be adapted are organisational values, attitudes and behaviours. And clearly where organisations come together or where different groups come together which had different pre-existing values, attitudes and behaviours, probably overlapping ones, but nonetheless ones with significant differences, this is an area where you're going to face a significant adaptive challenge. A second area where adaptive challenges are faced, and this is particularly around the need to adapt and change and grow people's value sets, because those lead to behaviours, are where old ways of doing things no longer suffice. Maybe that's to do with automation, maybe that's to do with technology, maybe that's merely to do with changing working practices. But there's an adaptive challenge of helping people to carry on thriving even in the face of significant change which is going to impact on them in a very personal way. A third area of adaptive challenges would be threats from new competitors or new entrants into your market, or working in industry areas which right now are very open to disruption or which are turbulent in some kind of a way. I'm thinking particularly just in terms of the work that we do with Crew at the moment. Healthcare and education are both very turbulent and rapidly changing sectors, certainly in the UK. A fourth and final area where you typically find adaptive challenges are if you're facing hyper-complex or wicked problems where there are lots of different interlocking factors and variables, and as you change one, others change as well. Again, as attitudes, beliefs, behaviours change and evolve over time, these are going to have all sorts of different structural and relational consequences. So I rather like this image. For me, this is an image of somebody thriving in an adaptive challenge, somebody who's had to adapt and change their values, their attitudes and their behaviours in order to carry on thriving into the future. But they've also preserved the best of the past at the same time. And it's that dialogue between what we're keeping from the past, what we're letting go of from the past, and what we're creating for the future that's the way of thinking about going about solving an adaptive challenge. So to summarise this, with a technical problem, the nature of the problem is known and understood. The solution is also known and understood, and this is something that can be solved by authority or by an expert because it can be solved by edict. With an adaptive challenge, the problem is going to require learning and diagnosis. The solution is going to require learning and experimentation, and the solution will come from developmental change and adaptation, which will involve everyone who's a stakeholder on the problem. And I'd just note at this point that a lot of failures of leadership are failures because an adaptive challenge has been mistaken for a technical problem. And the assumption is that the challenge can be solved by edict or can be solved by authority or can be solved by an expert imposing a solution, rather than actually what's needed is mobilising everybody involved in order to help them make progress on their challenges. And it's the failure of diagnosis, and it's the misunderstanding of the diagnosis that actually leads to the leadership failure. If you're interested in these ideas and you'd like to talk more, we would love to talk to you. Please feel very free at any point to contact either myself, Neill Thew, that's Neill at crewleaderdevelopment.com, or my partner Trevor at crewleaderdevelopment.com. And on our website, which is just crewleaderdevelopment.com, you'll find a whole range of resources relating to the work we do in adaptive leadership or immunity to change coaching. And we look forward to having a conversation with you, with no obligation, obviously, to discuss how we might be of service to you in helping you overcome your most difficult and your most pressing adaptive challenges.